Ian Glasson, welcome to the Digital Farm. You're here on behalf of the Zuelig Group. Can you tell us, which I understand is one of the world's biggest private conglomerates, can you tell us about the group and your role within the company?
Thank you, Mike. It's great to virtually be here. Zuelig is a large privately owned family business. It started in the Philippines by a Swiss immigrant in the early 1900s and now grown to be one of the largest pharmaceutical distribution businesses around the Asia-Pacific region. But more importantly, it has strong agricultural ties as well, and a major business there is called Glasson, which is an animal feed business throughout Southeast Asia and China.
Very good, and I understand you have machinery interests in Australia and New Zealand as well?
In this region, Zuelig has a company called CB Norwood, which is a very strong farm equipment supplier in New Zealand and growing in Australia. So it's got strong ties not only to Asia Pacific, but right here in Australasia.
Fantastic. Now you're here to talk at the Australian Farm Institute's round table. Can you tell us the subject of your talk?
Yeah, the question on the table that I've been asked is Australia Asia's food bowl? And I think the question itself is a little presumptive. I think to answer it, the real issue is Australia is an important exporter, but it's competing amongst some pretty big giants. So we compete with US, Brazil, and obviously South America. And the question for Australia is how do we stay relevant, particularly given our very small scale of total production?
The Australian Farm Institute itself has warned recently that we may miss the bus in terms of the growth of markets. A lot of people are saying we need to pitch our specialty products up market. Do you agree, A, with the Farm Institute's analysis, and B, where should we be pitching our desire to grow businesses?
Yeah, I think the interesting thing is that whilst Australia is still a very significant exporter and something like $32 billion worth of agricultural exports, so we're big, but we could be a lot better and we can do more by being on the ground in Asia. You can't just sit on the veranda and hope that someone will come and look for your food. You've really got to get into the markets, and that means taking what we do in Australia and doing that maybe with partners, but doing it around Asia with people who know the market and getting closer to the markets themselves.
From your base in Singapore, are you conscious of what our competitors and the global markets are actually doing, particularly, I guess, in respect of the Chinese middle class?
Yeah, very much. I mean, there's this wonderful thing about China growing, and you see this emergence of the middle class right across Asia, not only in China, but in Indonesia, Malaysia, and so on. So there's this great emergence of more Western-style products and higher value products. At the same token, Australia hasn't featured too well in that. We're still probably largely a commodity exporter, but also we're exporting to people who are doing the value adding overseas. It's tough to do value adding in Australia. It's an expensive place. It's better to do it close to markets, and hence the opportunities which I think are about getting on the ground in Asia and being closer to the customers there.
So you can see a model where, say, having an outpost, a processing outpost in Asia in partnership with other people might be a desirable model.
Yeah, and take the meat industry as a classic example. We have all sorts of issue with Indonesia, but why not partner with an Indonesian abattoir, start to move into the cold storage chain and actually move down the value chain closer to the customer? So I think there's lots of examples like that Australia can follow.
With you being involved with Gold Coin in the stock feeds or animal feeds business, what are the trends? I mean, is your business rising? We have stereotypical views of Asian production based probably on subsistence models. I'm sure that's not true. What are the trends in the various markets that you service in terms of growth of capacity?
Yeah, it's very exciting. I mean, the first thing about Asia is that it's an exciting market. Everything is growing substantially. So it doesn't matter if it's egg consumption, the sort of small growth in per capita consumption translates into massive volume. So just about every market we're in is seeing strong growth. But Asia is also many different markets. Malaysia is very mature in many ways. It started down this more westernised food style a lot earlier than some of the others. So we're seeing more mature markets in Malaysia, still strong growth, but we're seeing some very exciting growth in places like Vietnam and Indonesia. And China, of course, just massive. The problem for China is how do you capture and participate in China?
Well, indeed. So in terms of industry segments that you're aware of in Australia, I know what your advice is going to be, but do you think we're actually going to make it in terms of our capacity to respond quickly enough and get the act on the road?
Well, the opportunities are there, but we've had a few failures along the way. I mean, take Goodman Fielder. It used to own a stake in cold storage holdings in Singapore. We sold that to focus on the Australian branded business, which has come under all sorts of pressure, obviously from margins through very strong supermarket pressures and so on. So it's a tough business to grow. You need strong, deep pockets, strong margins. You need to have some profitable home businesses to then go and invest in offshore. That doesn't mean it can't be done. I think there are still a lot of areas such as, I say, meat processing. We've seen dairy consolidation happen and probably taken by foreign players, but I'm sure there's still lots of opportunities for Australia, which is still got some areas where it's leading the world in technology and some farm practices, and we should be looking to export those.